Okay, so thank you for joining this section. My name is Abiodun Fashion from Ocean Geosmic Technologies. So today we are going to cover Module 2 of our business analyst class. And Module 2 will cover project definition and scoping. So we'll go through scope creep, we'll go through project definitions, we'll go through a lot of items here. And so the question is, what is project scope? That's a question. What is project scope? Oh, sorry, let me go back. So in every project, we have an overall scope. The reason why the business, they're trying to embark on that project. And for BAs need to understand the reason behind the project. What exactly are we trying to do? What exactly are we trying to implement? So in our first module, which is last week, we cover a lot of items that address what is business analysis, the roles and the responsibilities of a business analysis. If they assign them to a project, they need to first understand the problem they're trying to solve, by communicating with the stakeholders and all that. So now, by the time you are communicating with the project stakeholders, that's where you're going to gather, understand the project scope. So every project has a scope that has been determined by the leadership and decision makers. The decision makers are the CEOs, the CIOs, the project sponsors, the managers, the directors. They make the decision because they already have funding. They have budget, they have funding for that project. There are two parts to scope. The first part is the project scope, the work that needs to be done, the work that needs to be accomplished to deliver a product, service, or result with specified features and functions. The project scope is very, very important in every software development. You need to understand what exactly the business are trying to do, the organizational goal, the vision. Maybe they're trying to implement a mobile application that will allow patients to start scheduling appointment with physicians. Now, because of COVID, people cannot go to the hospital now to to meet physicians one-on-one. So in this case, the organization, the hospital, their vision is to implement a mobile application that will allow patients to schedule a virtual appointment with the physicians, and the physicians will prescribe, medication for them. So that can be an overall scope, right? Now, if you look at product scope is the features and functions that characterize a product, service, or result. So what I'm trying to convey here is that Product scope, it's are the features that we want to build. So for example, if we are building a product, if we want if you want patient to be able to schedule an appointment with a physician, I'm sure they will need to click on something. They will need to click on a calendar, and they will need to select a date, and they need to choose a time, and they will need to add their email address and click on save. Those are the features and functions that characterize a product. And the product scope can be patients should have the opportunity, or patients should have the ability to view calendar, and they can be able to select dates and time they want to choose to schedule their appointment with the physician. And also they should be able to have, they should be able to have ability to receive their confirmation, their appointment confirmation through their email. So those are the product scope. Now, if you look at the um, the picture on the left side, we have budget, we have risk, we have resources, we have scope, we have time, we have quality. Scope, it's very important. Scope, apart from apart from scope, you need to understand the scope of resources too as a BA. So scope in terms of resources, number of resources that will be working on the project. Maybe 5 developers, maybe 10 developers, right? And also a budget and cost. BA doesn't really care about the budget, but for your own understanding, scope is beyond project scope. Quality. When it comes to quality of the mobile application, are you trying to build an Android mobile application, or you're trying to build iOS mobile application? At the same time and schedule, they are scope too. So scope, if you look at this diagram, risk is a scope too, it's part of scope. We have to make sure that there's no risk. Budget is another scope. Resource, how many number of resources that we're going to utilize on the project is another scope. Scope is more, and that's scope on himself is like the high level goal of what we are trying to do. So as a BA, you need to understand all this. You need to understand from budget, from resource, the scope, but the most important thing is for you to understand what the scope is all about, what we're trying to build, what we're trying to achieve. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what is project scope creep? Please, this is very, very important. This is very, very important. Scope creep. In an interview, an hiring manager, hiring managers or hiring manager, or maybe your future manager may ask you or can ask you, how do you manage scope creep? Have you managed scope creep before? And if you say yes, what approach did you use to manage scope creep? So now, you have to know how to manage scope creep as a BA, because scope creep is when your customers, they are bringing requirements more and more. They are bringing the requirements. They are bringing it. And so bringing too much of requirement, it will get to a stage, you have to be able to manage it. So I will tell you the approach now. But before I tell you, let me first define and explain what is scope creep in more detail. Scope creep is a term which refers to incremental expansion of the scope of a project. Scope creep is a risk to every project. Scope creep often causes budget and schedule overruns. Scope creep can come from the customer request for new features or from the developers features they just know the customer wants. Now, I'm gonna explain the approach now, but before I explain it, I want you to look at the animation I put on the right side. The one on the blue says, just a small extra job, not too much, extra effort. I'm sure it won't take too long. More cost, more time. How do I make this project pay? Now, as a BA, during your interview, if they ask you, how will you manage scope creep? The first thing you're gonna tell your hiring manager is that, well, in my previous job, this is how I manage scope creep, and this is my approach. First and foremost, during my requirement gathering section, immediately I gathered all my requirements. And I've already translated all the requirements from functional to, I'm sorry, from business requirement to functional requirement. Or if you just said, well, immediately I gathered all my requirements and I documented all my requirements. I make sure that I communicate to all the stakeholders that in case if there's going to be any requirement changes, this is my approach. The approach is, number one, we are going to, if you are bringing any new requirement or if you want to change the requirement, we will make sure that we analyze the requirement against our existing application. We will make sure that the requirement will not impact any existing design. We also make sure that the requirement will not impact budget, cost, resource, and timeline. If the requirement is going to impact all these factors, all these criteria, number one, we will need to renegotiate in terms of the timeline is going to change. For example, if we are to release the product in 3 weeks' time, and you came to me now that, okay, can you please add these 2 more requirements to this requirement or to this feature? Those 2 requirements, you as a BA, you need to communicate to your stakeholders that because of these 2 requirements, it's going to impact the timeline. So therefore, we will not release this feature, you know, release this product in 3 weeks' time. Maybe it can be 5 weeks' time. And also, if the new requirement is going to impact resources, you know, maybe we have to go and look for another resource or from another department, it's going to impact timeline too. So as a BA, your approach, those are your approach. You have to communicate, you have to communicate with your stakeholders earlier to let them know that this is your approach. There are some requirements that, you know, we have to make sure that we conduct analysis on them. So we can't just approve them. And every requirement that you are documenting, you will get signed off from all the stakeholders, from the customer requirement owners. So if you document this requirement, if they tell you that, okay, I want this end client to be able to download something from the website, they should have access. Are you sure this is what you want? Are you sure this is what you want? If they say yes, then they sign on that requirement and you put a date and the name of the person that signed it off. So tomorrow, the person will not come back again and tell you that, no, this is not what I told you. And you tell the person that, see, yesterday, this is what you told me. This is what I documented. And this is what you signed off for. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So do you understand what is scope creep now?
Yes.
And do you know how to manage a scope creep now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let me give you a scenario. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you are in a project ABC.
Okay.
And project ABC, the scope of the project is that we want to build an application that will allow customer to be able to view their task, their daily task, based on the priorities, priority high, medium, and low. So if they log into their system in the morning, they will see all their they will see all the list of tasks that they need to work on. They will see the priorities of those tasks, and they will see the due date when they must finish those tasks. Okay? You as a BA, one stakeholder came to you and said, Olamide, um, you know, I signed off yesterday for a requirement that will allow the customer service team to see all the list of their tasks daily. At the same time, I sign off for the task must show priorities of those items that they need to work on. And also I sign off for all the times they must show due date. And at the same time, um, that requirement, you have already documented the requirement, you have already translated the requirement. As a matter of fact, the developers, they started working on the implementation of that software. And I'm your customer. I'm the product manager. And I came to you, Olamide. I would like to add one more requirement to this project. As a matter of fact, I want the customers, when they work on when they work on task, can we have the system to be able to allow them to save any on work that they didn't finish? If they are working on a particular task and they can't be able to finish for that day, can they be able to save as a draft so tomorrow they can continue that work? So what's going to be your response, and how are you going to approach that scope creep?
Okay. I think since the project is being implemented.
They are working on it. They are still working on them.
Okay.
They are working on them. And remember, scope creep is when customers are bringing more requirements
More
and bringing more.
requirement, yeah.
And I'm assuming that during your requirement workshop, you have already communicated to them that in case if you guys gonna bring a new requirement, this is your approach. This is what you're gonna do. So now in this scenario, when I, as a product owner, I came to you and I told you that, Olamide, I want my customer service to be able to save uncompleted item. They didn't finish today, they can continue tomorrow and finish. How will you approach that kind of scope creep?
Okay, if there should be a specific time to finish up the project.
No, no. See, the project is already ongoing. The developers, they are working on it. You have already translated the requirement. You have already documented the requirement. The developers you already told them what they need to do. They are working on it. But I'm bringing new requirements to the ones that we have already documented, the ones that you have already documented before. So now I'm bringing new requirement to you now. How will you approach that new requirement? What are you going to tell the stakeholder?
Yeah, I'm going to tell the stakeholder. I'm going to analyze the requirement.
How
If
will you analyze it? What are the criteria? How will you analyze the requirement?
it's not going to impact the resources,
Okay.
if it's not going to impact the duration of the project, like the
Okay.
time frame,
Okay.
like and then if it's in line with the project, like it's not something totally different from what is ongoing.
Perfect. 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 So you as a BA, when I came to you and I said, Olamide, I want you to add this requirement to the features we are building. Fine. The features is good because the feature, it will allow customers to be able to save their uncompleted items they are working on. So tomorrow they can continue. Since if their due date is maybe 2 days time, they can be able to, save it. But the question is, the requirement, is it going to impact our timeline? If it's yes, you already communicated to the stakeholders already. And then with that one, you communicate with the project manager. Then the project manager will shift the duration. If the requirement is going to impact resources, if it's yes, then we are going to look for resources which is going to impact the timeline. Is the requirement is going to impact our existing functionality? No, it's not, because um, the question, all these questions are going to be answered by developers. All right.
Okay.
So you can't answer those questions because you are not the one building them. You are just going to analyze it, and based on analysis, you will work with the developers and they will tell you that, okay, this is going to impact, is not going to impact. So you understand this exercise now, right?
Yes, I do.
And you understand how to manage scope creep.
Yes.
It's very important. Every interviews, a BA interviews, they will ask you, how will you manage scope creep? Have you managed scope creep before? If you tell them yes, then you must explain your approach. Very important. Okay. So this is a project phases, and we're getting into the game now. This is a software development life cycle. This is the phases at which every software implementation must pass. Okay? As a BA, your role in all these phases is very important. Your role is very important. Now, from the project initiation, BA work with the stakeholders. BA work with the stakeholders to gather requirement from them. Okay. I want you to pay attention. The BAs work with them to gather requirement from them as a project initiation. The project initiation, this is when the stakeholders, they try to come up with the scope of the work. Sometimes BA help the stakeholders to create business cases. Business cases is the justification why the business want to embark on that project. Is the project is going to increase the revenue of the company? Is the project is going to increase the return on investment? Is the project is going to benefit the customer? Is the project is going to um, solve customers' problem? So the BAs sit with the executives and they strategize the project initiation. That's the role of the BA in the project initiation. The role of a BA in the requirement gathering analysis, they are the same. Requirement gathering analysis, they are the same. So, but the difference is that during requirement gathering, this is where the BAs, he or she schedule a call with the stakeholders, the customers, the product owners. They gather the requirement from them, understand their list of requirements. He or she will now translate those requirements into functional and non-functional requirements. And after the BAs documented all this, can you just mute yourself, please? So the BAs, during the requirement gathering, if there is any requirement that needs clarification, the BAs reach out to the product owner or the requirement owner to ask questions. Did you mean the dimension of this is 2 or 4? Are you sure about that? You document that. Once the requirement gathering has been completed, then the prioritization of the requirement to commence. The prioritization of all those requirements, this is a section where the BAs will ask the requirement owner. Now, we have 20 items on this list. Out of these 20 items, which of the items do you want the developers to work on first? They will tell you that I want this one to be I want this item to be at the top. I want this one to be at to follow. They'll start prioritizing it. So they start prioritizing those requirements from top to bottom. Once you prioritize it, then you now ask them to sign off. They need to put their signature and the date of when they sign all the requirements off. That's the end of the requirement gathering section. And that's the end of this phase. And you must use either Excel or Word to make sure you document your requirements. There are some, for Agile, in Agile world, we have application that we utilize. We use Jira, VSTS. I'm going to show you how to use Jira. Probably maybe this module or the next module. So in the requirements gathering phase, you are doing 3 things. Number 1, you schedule a call with them, with the customer, collect their requirements, gather their requirements, translate those requirements into functional and non-functional requirements, and document them. Number 2, if whatever you document, you need clarification around it, you go back to them and make sure you get your clarification settled. Number 3, under the requirement gathering phase, that's where you will prioritize those lists. They will tell you all the lists that needs to be at the top and all the lists that needs to be at the bottom. Once the prioritization has been done, the last thing that you need to do is you must make sure they sign off for the list, because you don't want them to come back tomorrow and tell you that we didn't sign off. This is not what I told you. This is not the requirement I told you. That's the end of the requirement gathering phase. Then the analysis phase, before you can complete this requirement gathering phase, there are some analysis you have to do. That's why I said they work hand in hand. So there are some requirements that you have to go back to the developers and ask them, this requirement, do you think is not going to slow the performance of the application? They will say, no, it's not going to. it's not gonna impact. I think it's good. Okay, you know, you have to do all that because they work hand in hand. Requirement gathering, phase analysis, they work hand in hand. So that's why I said is they're kind of the same. Then design phase. During design phase, if they after you have already gathered the requirements, design and analysis and requirement gathering, analysis, design, they go in parallel. Because the designer, he or she will be talking to the BAs and will be talking to the product owners. He will be talking to them and you gathering his own documents, so your own requirement too. So, but BAs must make sure that he understand everything on the design. After you gather the requirement, you analyze it. At the same time, the design is still going on too, because you already understand what the requirement is all about. You already done analysis. The design, once you get to the design phase, you understand what designer is doing because you already know the requirement already, right? So then after the designs have been completed, everything looks good, and the designer, the designer will send all the link, all the design into the Jira where the developers, they manage all their sprint backlogs. The development is where the BAs will also work with the development team. The BAs will not write it. It doesn't write any code though. BA doesn't write code, but um, the developers sometimes they might ask you about, well, I'm not really sure about this requirement. Can you clarify it? Or this design, the design that I'm seeing here, are we using the new design that designer provided, or are we using design that the system has right now? So all these questions, more like clarifications and all that, that's where you'll be working with the developers here. That they'll ask you questions in regards to requirements, they'll ask you questions in regards to design, and you must answer that question. If you can't be able to answer, you go back to designer here. Designer, hey, what's the dimension here? What is the dimension? Is it 2x4? Is it 3x2? Or what is the length size? Is it 3x2? Designer will say, let me take a look. Okay, it's 2x4. Okay, you go back to the developer. But the developer will not come and meet this one. Once the development has been completed, then the testing will begin. The role of a BA in the testing cycle is to first validate the build before the testing can be carried out. So now, during the requirement gathering, you remember that, because I need you to pay attention, I'm going to ask you a scenario question. So the testing, the BAs will coordinate the UAT, the BAs will validate the requirement the developers build prior to where the QAs will start testing. Once the BA has executed all the tests and all the test cases has been passed, then we will move to deployment. But the test cases must be passed. The UAT must be accepted by the customers. So now, this is how UAT is being carried out. UAT is called user acceptance testing. Before the UAT can be carried out, the QA, quality assurance, the QA, the BA will work with quality assurance to create a test case and test cases and test plan. So test plan is a document that contains how the test will be carried out, the duration of the test, all the features that the customer will test, and the steps at which customers will follow to test all the features. So test testing is very important too. So BAs, they coordinate the testing. When the test is going to be carried out, they work with the QA to review the test cases and also the test plan. Any feature that does not pass, they will come back to development, and the developers must fix it. Maybe out of 20 items now, if 18 pass, but 2 did not pass, then they will kick the 2 back. They will move it back to development phase. The developers must fix it. Once they fix it, immediately they fix it, they'll move it back to testing. Then once they finish the testing, the UAT is passed, then they now deploy. They deploy into production. And another thing I want to explain to you is there are different types of environments at which developers, they test, they build, and for UAT. We have a dev environment here. The dev environment is an environment whereby you see the developers, they use their code to code and develop the application. And they also use their own dev environment to test, not too, for unit testing and functional testing. Unit testing is a type of test that you test one particular feature. Maybe you want to test save that, if you want to save an information, you want to make sure that if the save is working or not. Or functional testing. Functional testing, you are testing a feature. If the feature is working. So a feature can be, let me put it this way. Maybe login screen. Maybe let's say Outlook. Maybe your Outlook box. That's one feature. Microsoft Outlook, or maybe your Gmail account. That's one. A Gmail account is one feature. A feature, I won't say Gmail account is a feature. Let me say, when you have all your list of your emails on your Gmail account, and you can be able to filter them and delete them based on the one you filter, right? That's one feature. Like you click on this one, you click on this one, you click on this one, and you filter them and delete. Bam. That's one feature. So now, if you want to test, you want to do unit testing for the filter feature, you are just testing if the filtering feature is working or not. So I'm trying to explain feature versus unit testing and functional testing. We'll get to it. We'll get to software testing, maybe module 6 or module 5 or something. Don't worry, you know everything about software testing. All right. So during the software, after all the items has been completed, they are passed, I'll also show you test cases. As a matter of fact, let me show you how test cases looks like, okay? Give me 1 second. Let me pause this. Okay, yeah, so during the testing phase, this is where the BAs coordinate with the QAs, making sure that the testing are being carried out, and making sure that everybody is on the same page and all that. And another thing on the testing phase is that if all the test cases are being carried out and they're all passed, then that's when they will move to deployment. So deployment is where the application will be deployed in production. And this is where, customers, they will start using the application. So after deployment, the next phase is operation and maintenance. Operation and maintenance, this is after deployment. This is when if there's any issue like bugs. So bugs is something that is not working well. So
Mm-hmm.
not working well. So the developers, they will fix it. And so that's the completion of a software development world. So now, in an you know
Okay.
in an as a matter of fact, in any interview, you can there's a possibility for your hiring manager to ask you what is the role of a BA in the software development life cycle. What is the role of a BA from inception? Inception is from the project initiation.
Mm-hmm.
Post implementation. Post implementation is operation and maintenance because that's the end of
Okay.
those. So, what is the role? What is your role as a BA from inception to post implementation of a software application? So, can you just give me like two, you know, maybe one point, one bullet point? Like, okay, let me just give you an example. During the project initiation, my role as a BA is to, work with the stakeholders, understand their pain points, provide solutions, develop use case that will justify the reason why they should embark on that project. At the same time, I help, the product manager to create a product strategy that will actually benefit or solve the customer's problem. Then after that, in the requirement gathering phase, my role as a BA is to sync up with the customers, schedule a call with them, gather their requirements, clarify the requirement, document their requirement, conduct analysis on those requirements to ensure that it will not impact any existing application. And also, my role is to ensure that I prioritize the list of items that we want to implement and to get sign off. Then during analysis, my role is to ensure that if any new requirement comes in, I need to conduct analysis to make sure that it will impact timeline, resources, cost, and all that on our budget. Now, at the same time, during the design phase, my role is to work with the designers to make sure that business strategy goals and objectives have been aligned to the same page with the business. Because whatever the designer is working on, it must align with what the business are looking for. So my role is to coordinate with the designer to ensure that the designer is actually designing the right fixtures or the right marks. Then during development, my role as a BA is to, make sure that I help the developers to solve problem during development. If they need any question from me, my role is to make sure that I answer their questions, question related to design, question related to requirements and all that. My role is to make sure that they understand and I communicate what they need to implement so that they can do the actual job that the business wants. And during testing phase, my role as a BA is to ensure that I review all the test cases, the keyways, documented, and also to review the test plan, the keyway documented. At the same time, my role as a BA during testing phase is to make sure that I coordinate the user acceptance testing. And prior to the user acceptance testing, my role is to ensure that I validate all the requirements that it was built by developers before customers started testing. And my role is to ensure that I coordinate the user acceptance testing. Everything looks good. If there's any issues around bugs, I will make sure I move it back to development, and I will make sure that the developers, they fixed it. And during the deployment phase, my role is to make sure that I communicate when the deployment is going to happen to the customer, when the product will be live, and so that the customers can be able to communicate to their end client. And during operations and maintenance phase, my role is to make sure that I raise my role is to, fix any issue, by, creating a ticket. So ticket is when there's any bug in production. If there's any issue in production, you as a BA, you have to create a ticket number. So that ticket number, you assign it to a developer, and developer will fix it. So did you really understand the role of a BA, or am I speaking too much of technical jargons here, or is this something that I need to explain a little bit more?
I'm assimilating.
Huh?
I'm assimilating.
Okay.
Find it away.
Okay, good. All right. So you want me to proceed, or do you have any question? I want to make sure.
No,
Okay.
you can
All right.
proceed.
All right, good. All right. I know it's a lot of information, but all right. So now, know the scope. So it is an imperative that you know the scope of your project before you begin gathering requirements. It's very important. If you don't know the scope, I will advise you not to gather your requirement. And in a job interview, interviewers can ask you, what do you understand by a project environment or project scope? They can ask you, how do you gather your requirements? If you don't know your scope, how will you gather your requirements? They can ask you that, what are the tools and that you have utilized to gather your requirements? And what are the questions you ask your interviewers, your stakeholders? And they can also ask you that, so how do you learn about it? What are the first thing you do when you're assigned to a project? So what are the things that you do, and how do you approach a project? What's your approach to a project? Based on what you've done in the past, can you tell me how you approach your project? I told you about this already. You approach your project, you have to first and foremost understand the problem, number one. Number two, review the past documentation they utilized before to build that project or that application. Number three, know your stakeholders, know your customers. Who are the people that identify the stakeholders, people that you want to work with, Then number three, make sure you come up with your change requirement, come up with your how to manage your scope creep, your requirement change, So you must know all this. It's very important as a PA, okay. Then
Yeah.
another thing, you may well begin requirements which are outside the scope of the project. Those requirements should be documented and presented to the decision team. They will either adjust the scope or move them to a future release. So another thing is, when you want to start gathering requirement, you start from top, from the high level. So in the business world, in the business analysis world, there's this what we call high level and low level. High level is the overall, is more like higher. I'll put it like objectives, objectives and goals, vision, like high level, like, okay, oh, I want all these accounts. No, I want this module to appear under the account, like the account module, individual module, household module. That's what I want them. Because by the time you start digging, then you are decomposing to lower level. That's what we call low level. By the time you documented them into user stories. All right.
Okay.
So before we move forward, do you have any question for me? Are you really following? You understand the whole
Yes, I'm
framework, the
following.
technology,
Yeah.
the language? Okay, good. So now we are in a deliverables. So you'll be hearing a lot of this terminology, deliverables, high level, low level, use case, processes, all these jargons. We call it technical jargons. You'll be hearing all this. So deliverables are, is a tangible or intangible goods or service produced as a result of a project that is intended to be delivered to a customer, either internal or external. The deliverable could be a report, a document, or a software product, a server upgrade, or any other building block of an overall project. Each phase of the process produces at least one deliverable. Each deliverable should be completed during the appropriate phase. The phase cannot be considered complete until the deliverable has been approved. So deliverables are something that BAs, not only BAs, everybody must work on. So for the deliverables under requirement gathering, the deliverables are: number one, you schedule a call with the customer. That's the one deliverable. And once you finish the scheduling, then you be on the call with them and you gather your requirement, right? So now, another thing that I need to understand is that you will learn very soon on how to gather your requirements. It's a technique. You've already watched the video. Different techniques that a BA utilizes to gather requirement. I'm sure you remember survey, through focus group, through interviews, brainstorming. Those are your techniques. Documentation analysis, observations. Those are your techniques. You will utilize to get a requirement. So, but your deliverables are something that you achieved, that you've done. So deliverables can be a report that you have to create this report by so time. And once you created that report, that's the end of your deliverable. Any question before we move forward?
So it's just it's like a report, right? Like something you have to show show for being on the project or what?
Doesn't have to be a report. Deliverables are tasks that you need to work on, and once you finish it, then that's a deliverable.
Okay.
So deliverable can be, okay, I can say Olamide, you need to work with 3 customers tomorrow. Your first task is schedule a call with them, understand their pain point, collect their requirements, translate those requirements from business requirements to functional requirements. Once you do that, prioritize the requirements, let them sign off the requirement, let them put a date on it, and also send the requirement to project manager to build a schedule around it. You see all those
Okay.
tasks? Once you
Mm-hmm.
finish, those are your deliverables.
Okay.
You got it,
I
right?
understand. I got you.
Yeah, cool. So you need to understand all this. So by the time you're communicating with your team members, then you'll be hearing a lot of this stuff, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, I heard it from Mr. Ocean Smith, all that stuff. So, all right. Any other question?
Um,
All right. So, role of a BA in the SDLC. So, can you tell me what are the phases of an SDLC?
um, the phases. The first one, project initiation.
Okay, and what's the role of the
Where
PA?
okay, where you as a BA needs to communicate with the shareholder, you
Stakeholders.
to
Stake.
shareholders, stakeholder, right?
No, yes, they are not shareholders. They are stakeholders.
Oh, where you have to communicate with the stakeholder about the project, um, what they're looking at, the outcome, and you know. And the
Okay.
next phase will be requirement gathering, where you
Okay.
have to like place a call to end clients. End
Okay.
clients.
You don't have to schedule interviews. It's to gather requirements. Like you know all the techniques, right? You don't have to schedule a call.
Mm-hmm.
You can use documentation analysis to gather requirement. You can use focus group. You can
Okay.
use interviews. You can use
It's just
brainstorm.
all about gathering requirement.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
So yeah, it now depends. It depends on the project. There's some project that you don't have to do interviews. There's some project that you have to interview a lot of people. There's some project that you have to just interview. You have to use focus group. Focus group are like just you focus on few group of people, maybe three,
like
four,
the
or five.
project managers, right?
Well, it doesn't. It's not like a project manager. So when you are gathering requirement, you are gathering requirement from the customer, from the people that are using the application. The people that are using the application, those are the people that you are, because they are the one that they can tell you their pain point. Project manager doesn't use the application. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
So project manager just creates a schedule. The people, the end clients, those are the people. Those are the people that they want the application, and they are the one that they will tell you what they want. All right.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, you can go and stay with them, maybe sit with them, then observe what they're doing, and you're documenting it. Oh, okay, so this is what you guys are facing. For example, when you're working a application, see the way the application was like
Mm-hmm.
moving slowly, like the performance was very slow. So that's another way to gather requirements through observation.
Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, and the next one would be analyst, where you once you gather the requirements, when you actually know which one goes first among the list of requirements.
It's still under requirement gathering.
Okay, where you know the one that goes first.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
since you said the requirement gathering and the analyst work
they
together.
go hand in hand. Yeah, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But always for prioritization of item, always move it to requirement gathering phase. While the analysis is when you are just analyzing the requirement and see if it's something that is durable or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Um, the next phase is design, when the development group has to work on the requirements you gathered and the analysis, and when they try to put it all together to work, right?
So design phase is where the designer creates a marks or UI UX. Is either you say
What's
marks,
US?
UI is a user interface.
Okay.
All right. Then UX is user experience.
Oh, UI.
So yeah, so you need to understand all these terminologies. UI UX. If you're telling the developer that, well, the UI UX, I reviewed yesterday for so page. It looks great. I think we need to do some rework on the marks too. Marks and UI UX, they are the same. You can just say marks.
Okay.
Marks, MOCKS, marks. So so you need to
Okay, the
understand
marks.
that. Yeah, yeah, marks. Okay, go ahead.
After that, I think is the development,
Yeah.
um, where the design has to be implemented
No, not the
and
design. The whole requirement has to be implemented.
where it has to be implemented.
Yeah.
And this is a phase where the designer doesn't work with the development team, but the BA, right?
Yeah. So this phase,
The BA will look like the information when something is wrong with the design or everything doesn't
yeah,
look right. The BA has to go back to the designer.
got
For,
it. For clarification.
okay. And after that is testing.
Okay.
Okay, the testing is where the BA documents
No,
the
work with the key. So
the
the,
queue.
okay, hold on, don't worry. So let me explain. So the development stage, there are two things that BA does. Number one, it get clarification around designs and requirements. And number two, if they build after they build the requirements, the BAs will test what they build because you are the one that wrote all the requirements, right?
Yeah.
You must validate it before the QA started testing, before we can move it to testing phase. By the
Oh,
time you move it to testing phase, you have already validated all the
okay.
requirements immediately they finish it. All right. Because if you don't validate it, they will move the requirement to completed. And there is a way they review their codes. Their own manager, they will review their line of codes, their programming, they will review it. Don't worry, I will explain the whole coding later. I don't want to be overwhelmed. I don't want to put too much
Yeah.
information on your brain, right? So after the development, you already tested the requirement that they build.
Mhm.
Then during testing phase, BAs work with the QAs, he review the test plan, he review the test script, and also he coordinates with the users and the QAs to validate all the requirement, all the test script. All right.
All right.
Yeah. So you got it though. You got it. You got it. You got it. So now let's do some recap here. BA role in software in SDLC. SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. Look at from the analysis, initiation and planning. Initiation and plan, analysis of requirement, high-level project plan, impact, cost-benefit analysis. This way it happens. The BAs it conducts it will conduct cost-benefit analysis. Uh, it will create a business case as well. It will, do more of analysis around requirement on a high level. On a high level, it's not low level. So requirement phase is more like low level.
Okay.
So requirement phase, this is where preparation of UML diagrams, user stories, use cases. So you still learn more about UML and use cases later. Just focus on user stories. This is more low level. This phase is more high level, initiation and planning. Requirement analysis is more low level.
Low level.
The design phase, this is where, and the development, clarification given to team developers as when needed. Like I told you, this is where you get clarifications from the designer back to the developers if there's any question and all that. But yeah, on the requirement phase, you have already documented all the requirements. You have already prioritized all the requirements. You have already, the sign off has been done. Sign off has been done. Okay.
Okay.
So now, after the design and development, the testing and implementation. So this is where participation in UAT, regression testing, sanity testing, review test case script. You know, this is where BAs, you will review, you participate in UAT, you will participate in regression testing. I will explain what the regression testing later. And sanity testing, I'll review later with you, okay? Review test case. You will review test case, the keywords and all that. Did you really understand the whole thing here, right? The role of a BA in the software development life cycle. Because
Yeah.
in an interview, please, it's very important. Please, it's very important. They can ask you what is the role of a BA in software development life cycle. You must know how to explain it, one or two bullet points. Don't talk too much, like I explained. If you can be able to understand the role of a BA in the software development life cycle, you are very good. You really know what you're doing. Because if you know everything, then your job is coming very soon. I'll still be your mentor. If you have any question, just make sure you know the role is very important. Any question?
Not really.
Okay, sounds good. All right. All right. So now you have another scenario question that you must answer. Let me read it out. The BA and project team have one shared goal. This is, let me read the summary first, okay? Then after that, we'll address the exercise.
Okay.
The BA and the project team. This is a summary of everything you have learned today. That's what I'm trying to read out.
Okay.
The BA and project team have one shared goal: to carry out the work of the project for the purpose of meeting the project's objectives. Every project has a beginning, a middle, period during which activities move the project toward completion, and an ending, either successful or unsuccessful. A standard project typically has the following four major phases, each with its own agenda of tasks and issues: initiation, planning, implementation, and closure. Under initiation, we have the under initiation we have the kickoff, project kickoff. Under planning, we have the requirement gathering, we have the analysis and all that stuff. And under implementation, we have design, we have deployment. Then under closure, that's where we have deployment. All right. Taken together, these phases represent the path a project takes from the beginning to its end and are generally referred to as a project life cycle, which means they are software development life cycle. Okay? This is your question. This is your assignment for module 2. I'm expecting you to put it on a Word document, upload it on a folder, on a share, on OneDrive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So now, exercise 2.1. You have been assigned as a new BA for an upgrade project for ATM application enhancement in your organization. As a new BA for this project, how do you determine your customer scope of work? I hope it's not, I know you can do it. So,